Hi, welcome to Jared Invests. Today, we are going to be discussing about the one emergency fund rule almost every 20-year-old ignores, until the moment it's too late. You're 23, it's a Tuesday morning, you turn the key in your ignition, and nothing happens. Dead, the mechanic calls you back in 40 minutes and tells you it's the alternator. $838. Your next paycheck lands in 11 days. You've got $214 in your checking account. What do? Most people in that exact situation reach for a credit card, borrow money from a family member, or panic spiral for 72 hours while the car sits in a parking lot. And the worst part? It's not a made-up horror story. That scenario is playing out for millions of people in their 20s right now. Because 59% of Gen Z cannot cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. Not because they're lazy, not because they're stupid. Because nobody ever taught them the one financial rule that quietly protects everything else. That's what this video is about. By the end, you're going to have a specific 4-stage framework to build a real emergency fund, even on a tight income, and you're going to understand exactly where to keep it so it's earning money while it waits. No fluff, no just spend less on coffee. Real numbers, real steps, real math. Let's get into it. Here's a framing shift that changes how you see money entirely. An emergency fund is not savings. Say that again. It is not savings. Savings is what you put toward a vacation, a car, a down payment on something you want. An emergency fund is insurance. It sits in the same category as your car insurance, your renter's insurance, your health insurance. You pay for insurance every month, and you hope you never use it, but you would never ever drive your car without it. So why are you living your entire financial life without the equivalent? Once you see it that way, the emotional relationship shifts completely. You stop feeling frustrated that the money is just sitting there. It's supposed to sit there. That's the whole point. It's your financial seatbelt. And right now, most 20-somethings are driving at 80 miles an hour with no seatbelt on. Now let's look at where Gen Z actually stands, because the data is genuinely alarming. The median emergency savings balance for Gen Z right now is $400. $400. Compare that to baby boomers, who hold a median of $2,000. That's not a slight gap. That's a 5 times difference in financial cushion between generations. And it gets worse. 55% of Gen Z don't have 3 months of expenses saved, more than half. That means more than half of an entire generation is one bad month away from a financial crisis. And that bad month? It's coming. It always comes. The entry-level job market is down 35% since 2023. Financial insecurity among Gen Z jumped from 30% all the way to 48% in a single year, from 2024 to 2025. That's not a slow drift, that's a free fall. Almost half of Gen Z now reports feeling financially insecure, and in a job market where finding a new position takes an average of 14 weeks. 14 weeks. Not having a cushion doesn't just hurt, it derails everything. There's one more stat that should stop you cold. People without emergency funds are twice as likely to raid their retirement accounts during a financial crisis. Twice as likely. So if you're one of the rare 20-somethings who's been contributing to a 401k or a Roth IRA, and that's genuinely great, the absence of an emergency fund is a direct threat to those accounts. Because the second a crisis hits and you don't have cash, the retirement money starts looking like a solution. Pulling from a retirement account before 59.5 triggers a 10% early withdrawal penalty plus income taxes on top of that. You could lose 30 to 40 cents on every dollar you pull out. The emergency fund isn't competing with your retirement savings, it's protecting them. Now let's talk about the objections, because there are 2 that come up constantly, and both of them are traps. The first one, I'll build my emergency fund after I pay off my debt. Makes sense on the surface. Logical. Mathematically, it's a mistake. Here's why. Life does not pause while you pay off debt. The car still breaks down. The medical bill still shows up. And when it does, and you have zero buffer, you go right back to the credit card. You haven't made progress. You've run in a circle. The correct move is to build a $1,000 starter fund first, even while carrying debt. That starter fund isn't there to make you rich. It's there to break the debt cycle. One layer of protection, so the next $838 car repair doesn't go on a card with a 24.92% APR. More on that number in a second. The second objection: I'll just put it on the credit card if something happens. That's what credit cards are for. No, that's not what credit cards are for. That's what the credit card companies want you to think, because it's enormously profitable for them. Here's the actual math. And this is where things get uncomfortable. The average credit card APR right now sits at 24.92%. Let's say you're 23 and three things go wrong in the same year. One car repair, $838. One ER visit, and the average ER visit in the US costs $3,300. And 2 months of living expenses while you're between jobs at an entry-level income, which comes out to roughly $6,000. Add it up, $838 plus $3,300 plus $6,000. That's $10,138 in unexpected costs. All of it landing on a credit card at 24.92% APR. That's an extra $2,527 per year in interest alone, just for the privilege of not having a fund in place. $2,500 a year. Gone. That's not a hypothetical fee buried in fine print. That's money that could have been going toward literally anything else in your life, bleeding out because the buffer wasn't there. And for the people in the comments who are about to say, well, I pay my card off every month. Good. But the data says 59% of Gen Z can't cover a $1,000 emergency without going into debt. The majority of people watching this cannot pay that card off every month when a $10,000 crisis hits at 23. That's the reality. There's one more trap worth naming because it doesn't get talked about enough. 37% of Gen Z deliberately overspend as a coping mechanism for financial anxiety. It's called doom spending. And it creates a brutal feedback loop. The financial situation feels hopeless, so spending happens for relief, which makes the financial situation worse, which increases the anxiety, which triggers more spending. The emergency fund breaks that loop. Not completely, not overnight, but having a real cushion removes the background hum of financial dread that makes people want to spend their way to feeling okay for an afternoon. The fund is psychological armor as much as it is financial protection. So what's the actual system? Here it is. 4 stages. You don't try to jump straight to 3 months of expenses. That goal is so far away it feels unreachable, and unreachable goals don't get started. You build in stages, and you celebrate each one. Stage 1. $1,000. That's it. That's the first target. $1,000. Not 3 months of expenses, not some theoretically correct amount. $1,000 in a dedicated account, separate from your checking, that you do not touch unless it is a genuine emergency. Why $1,000? Because $1,000 covers the most common single emergencies. It covers that car repair. It buys you 3 or 4 days of runway if rent is late. It's a real buffer. It's reachable on most entry-level incomes within a few months, and it cuts financial stress in a measurable way. Get to $1,000 first. Stage 2. 1 month of expenses. Not 1 month of income. 1 month of expenses. Add up what you actually spend in a month. Rent, utilities, groceries, transportation, subscriptions, minimum debt payments. That total is your number. If you're spending $3,500 a month, your Stage 2 target is $3,500. If you're spending $2,200, it's $2,200. 1 full month. Stage 2 takes longer, but you've already got $1,000 done, and you can feel the difference. Stage 3 months of expenses. That's the standard for most people in stable employment. If you spend $3,500 a month, your fully funded emergency fund is $10,500. That's the number. 3 months of expenses, not 3 months of income. The income figure sounds scarier and it's the wrong benchmark. The question an emergency fund answers is, how long can I survive without new money coming in? The answer needs to be at least 3 months. In a job market where the average search takes 14 weeks, 3 months is just barely enough. If you're in a volatile industry, a creative field or self-employed, pushing towards 6 months is the smarter call, but start with 3. Stage 4. Fully funded and automated. Once you've hit 3 months of expenses, you maintain it. Set an automatic transfer on payday, even if it's $25 or $50 a month. So the fund never quietly erodes without you noticing. At that point, you stop thinking about it. It runs in the background, just there, waiting. Now, where you keep this money matters almost as much as having it at all. The fund has two requirements: instantly accessible and earning something. Under your mattress earns zero. In your regular checking account, you'll spend it. The answer is a high-yield savings account, a HISA. As of May 2026, the top rates look like this. Varo is at 5.00%. SoFi is at 4.50%. Marcus by Goldman Sachs is at 4.25%. Compare that to the national average savings rate at traditional banks, which sits around 0.44%. Parking your emergency fund in a regular savings account means leaving serious money on the table. Here's what that actually means in dollars. If you've got $9,000 sitting in a HISA at 5%, that fund earns $450 in a year, just sitting there. Your emergency fund is making money while it waits for a job loss that may never come. That is a completely different psychological relationship to having cash set aside. It's not dead money. It's working money that also happens to be your seatbelt. And if you hit a stage where you've got 2 or 3 months of expenses saved, you can keep the bulk of it in the HISA and only keep your $1,000 immediate access buffer in a linked account you can move in minutes. One key thing with the HISA: pick one, open it today, and make the transfer automatic. Most of these accounts take 10 to 15 minutes to open online. No waiting period, no minimum balance at most of them, no fee. The friction is almost zero. The reason people don't do it isn't complexity, it's inertia. So let's cut through that. Here's what 3 steps look like this week. Not this month, this week. Step 1. Open a HISA today. Pick one: Varo, SoFi, Marcus, whichever, and spend 15 minutes opening the account. Just get the account open. Step 2. Transfer whatever you can spare right now into it, even if it's $50. An account with your name and a real balance attached to it makes this feel real. Psychology matters here. An empty account is easy to forget. A funded account, even a small one, is a commitment you made to yourself. Step 3. Set one automatic recurring transfer for payday. Pick an amount that won't wreck your budget: $50, $100, whatever actually fits. Set it to move automatically every time you get paid. Then stop thinking about it. That automation is what separates people who eventually have an emergency fund from people who've been meaning to start one for 3 years. Here's what I want you to think about before you click away. Most 20-somethings are one car repair, one medical bill, one layoff away from a spiral that takes years to recover from. The people who avoid that spiral aren't necessarily earning more. They're not luckier. They built one boring financial habit early, let it compound quietly, and when the alternator dies on a Tuesday morning, they just pay for it. No panic. No credit card debt at 24.92%. No raiding the retirement account. Just money doing exactly what it was put there to do. You're not building an emergency fund to get rich. You're building it to buy yourself options. The option to walk away from a bad job without being desperate. The option to handle a health scare without it wrecking your finances. The option to say no when you need to say no. That's what financial stability actually feels like at 23. Not a huge salary, not a stock portfolio, a cushion, a buffer. 3 months of expenses sitting in an account you barely think about, earning 5%, waiting. The alternator on that Tuesday morning. It's not the disaster. Not having $838 sitting ready. That's the disaster. Fix that part first. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video.